Namaste, my dear and most beloved and Honorable Prime Minister of India, Shri Narendra Modi ji, our beloved and Honorable Chief Ministers of Telangana and AP, Shri Kalvakuntla Chandrasekhar Rao Garu and Shri Jagan Mohan Reddy Garu, and all the Ayush panel members, the task force members and dignitaries. We all know that the world is going through a very tedious phase of this viral attack on the humanity. While we are facing a rough situation, we, the team of Polyscientific Ayurveda, are hopeful that a solution to this problem will come from India and from our own indigenous sciences, which is Ayurveda. I am Dr. Ravishankar Polisetti. I am a cardiac surgeon and translational researcher of Ayurveda, immensely influenced by Sri Sathya Sai Baba's teachings. I took up Sanskrit learning 28 years ago and had been reading ancient scriptures of Ayurveda and been involved in translational research of Ayurveda. And I was the first in the world to actually create models of Vata, Pitta, Kapha in experimental animals and quantify them. And having said that, I've also tried to correlate the Vata, Pitta, Kapha and their subdoshas with the frequency domains of heart rate variability. And we have come up with a unique digital doctor device which is called as the Doctor Poly that will give the Vata, Pitta, Kapha fingerprint of an individual. We are now teamed up with Ayurvedic Professor Raghupati Pantulu Garu, working for the University of Health Sciences, NTR University of Health Sciences, Vijayawada. And we have eminent allopathic doctors, Ayurvedic doctors, PharmD doctors, clinical research professionals, and virologists in our panel and international advisors from across various countries of United States, Canada, Russia, UK, and Germany. So what I'm going to share now is going to be very, very different from what we have already heard, depending on the data that is coming freshly from UK and US and Canada. So what I want to share first is about the genomic mutations that this virus has undergone in the last 6 months, totaling about 1700 mutations, which have led to the formation of more than 129 different types of mutants, 60 different strains of virus. And an important aspect that we know in respect to this virus is that this virus is gaining entry into the body through the ACE receptor, angiotensin converting enzyme receptor. But what we also figured out was that there is a mutation that has undergone at the L84S genetic locus of this particular virus, which possibly is giving access to the host cells through the vanilloid receptors. And this is very, very important because this vanilloid receptors, according to our research, belongs to the category of a Pitta dosha, and which means this virus is actually aggravating Pitta. And ACE receptor along with the transpeptidase receptors are giving access to the virus to enter the host, which is the human being. And these two receptors should be categorized as Vata receptors. So friends, one thing that I would want to clarify here is it is a Vata Pitta or a Pitta Vata aggravating virus, as opposed to some thoughts around the Ayurveda circles that it could actually aggravate Kapha. I'll also prove that this is not a Kapha mediated disease, because the clinical presentation of the patients is definitely typically fever, mild grade to moderate grade, with SOB, shortness of breath, and cough. In 90% of times this cough is dry, and only 10% of times this cough is actually productive with very minimal production of mucus, and that too white in color, which says that this is not typical of any pneumonia. And when you look at the pathogenesis, this virus is actually has more than 2,700 times more affinity to the hemoglobin protein than the oxygen, and because of which people are ending up with hypoxia. The saturation levels are going as low as 85 in some situations, and this is causing a glass ground appearance in the x-rays of patients. And glass ground appearance is not typical of pneumonia, and hence this virus is not causing acute respiratory distress syndrome as was thought originally. It is causing systemic inflammatory response syndrome through the activation of the ACE receptor. So that is why if we treat this virus as a kaphatmaja or a kaphagenic virus, then we would actually hurt the patient the same way we are actually hurting the allopathy. In the allopathy, the practice is to give ventilatory support by giving high PEEP and low tidal volume, which is good, which is true in ARDS, but not in this particular COVID-19 mediated pneumonia, because this is not typical pneumonia, and hence the ventilator should be on low PEEP and high tidal volume. So these are very important differences that we identified, which actually changed the treatment course. And as opposed to this virus is actually very tricky, because the clinical presentation is not typical and staging is not possible, because a person could walk in with just extreme lethargy and fatigue and suddenly collapse and end up with a cytokine storm and end up with death. And there are instances which are reported in the Washington University Hospital and also in the Mount Sinai Hospital, where patients with extreme hypoxemia were admitted and they walked away without any problem, who were very lucky. What I want to say is this: according to one of my doctors, he said that this virus chooses whom to kill, whom not to kill. And it's extremely tricky because it is extremely mutative, according to me, number one, and it is extremely unpredictable. So you can't arrive at a treatment protocol. Hydroxychloroquine, the NEJM published just yesterday that hydroxychloroquine in a cohort of 63 patients did not prove good. It actually proved worse because it mandated ventilator support in all of the 33 patients in whom hydroxychloroquine was actually administered. And the IL-6 inhibitor is being tested in Yale University, which is very costly, and this trial is ongoing. There is another combination of azithromycin with HCQS, which has just failed in various clinical setups. So what I'm trying to say is the plasma therapy is not really specific enough, because we have already identified 5 different types of antibodies, and based on the mutations that this virus had already undergone, there could be 60 types of plasmas. So matching plasmas to the required or deserving donor is very, very difficult in these circumstances. So our approach would be a polyscientific approach, in which we are not advising people to be put off the ventilatory or supportive allopathic treatment, but what we do is we are going to actually diagnose the Vata Pitta Kapha imbalances, because according to Ayurveda, Vikaro Dhatu Vaishamyam, Dhatu Samyam Arogataha. What it means, we all know, is that when there is imbalance of Vata Pitta Kapha in the dhatus, that causes disease. And when you remove these imbalances, automatically Arogata is a natural course. So for which we need to exactly pinpoint what types of imbalances are present in which dhatu, for which we're going to use this device. This got a sensor fitted, and it detects imbalances in after 10 minutes of data acquisition. The application runs on the server, and it gives a Vata Pitta Kapha fingerprint in all of the 42 organs, and based on which we actually give personalized herbal supplements, personalized Ayurvedic formulations. We have developed our own formulations based on Anubhuta Yogam, like biotin, erythrolysine, immunomodulin, especially for immunoboosting of individuals, biotin for setting the bioenvironment, symbiotic bioenvironment in the body with the microbes and other protein particles in the body, and more than 19 formulations are actually manufactured by our company, and we are hopeful that by proper administration of these herbal supplements, depending on the VPK fingerprint of an individual, we'll be able to bring about Dhatu Dosha Samyam, which is the hallmark of Ayurveda. If we don't personalize and bring about and use those herbs and those herbs that bring about a Vata Pitta Kapha balance in appropriate formulations, and in this particular scenario, and we actually approach the patient by personalizing, by understanding the individual dosha components in each of the dhatus, and we might have to monitor the patient very closely because the course of the disease is extremely unpredictable, and that is why we're going to use various herbal supplements in different formulations. Because in Ayurveda, as we all know, there is a ghrutam. For every herb, there could be a ghrutam or a kwatam or a asavam or arishtam or kashayam or a vati or a guti, depending on the Vata Pitta Kapha predominance in the dhatus. If we don't diagnose that, we will not be able to actually prescribe appropriate treatment, and hence the Dr. Polly would be very instrumental in identifying, apart from the traditional Nadi Pariksha that we're going to do, and we're also planning to administer specific Panchakarma remedies in the form of, we anticipate that we might have to do a Virechana therapy for people who are presenting with abdominal syndromes with diarrhea, and in those patients who have who present with fatigue or who present with severe asphyxia, we might have to do Matra Basti depending on the indication. So this is our approach, and we are sure that with this approach we'll be able to address COVID-19 patients and help improve clinical outcomes. Thank you very much.